hunkered in just New Hampshire and Massachusetts, where we currently are today. So also brought along a good longtime friend, John Gillis. John and I have known each other for well over a decade, and very, very interesting to have somebody that can handle any situation. Like, I'm in the midst of chaos right now. I'm doing a flip in Somerville, and I cannot tell you, like, it's just chaos. I'm like, the finish line is right there, but everything's happening, right? Having a lender on your team that can deal with any situation is crucial, right? You don't want to be scrambling in the 11th hour trying to find a mortgage broker that can get the deal done and figure out how to do it, right? John and his crew are just awesome. His brother Kevin is awesome. They work at Guaranteed Rate right now, and they always have done a great job. So I always refer all of my friends and clients and family to him and his crew. Big thing is, we've done this before. I don't want to talk a lot because you don't want to hear me talk a lot. So I'm going to share a few things. Jimmy's going to share a few things. John's going to share a few things. And I really want to open it up to questions and answers for you guys, because you have a ton of questions and concerns, and whatever we can do to give you our experience is what you really can benefit from today. So the only thing that I'm going to say regarding the current pulse of the market is, we've seen this before, where everybody is bidding up $100,000, $150,000, but the values haven't reached that level yet. So what do we do, right? How do we get it to close? What do we do with the appraisal? All of these sorts of things. It's a hard spot to be in. It's one of those real difficult spots to be in, to prove value when there isn't any proof to support it. And for us as appraisers, we see it too. We're sitting there at the computer. So many times Jimmy and I are like, I know it's worth that much. It's like there's 10 offers and they're all right there, but I have no evidence of it. And the evidence that I have is old, but how do I support that adjustment? So time adjustments is one way in which we as an appraiser can kind of make up some of that ground. So if we can use sales up to a year old, okay? But obviously, if we went back to November, that's exactly when I pinpointed of when $150,000 value just jumped up in the market. Right after that election. Happens typically around elections, just so you know. Doesn't matter who's in office, it's always around an election. Post-election, our values spike. People just start spending money and they overspend on stuff. So we can pinpoint stuff with a time adjustment. If you're dealing with anything right now and there's some comps on the appraisal that are back in the November timeframe or even beyond that, the time adjustment can be made. The appraiser, it's hard to support. So most appraisers don't want to do it because it involves a lot of research to grab data to understand, well, this is what the time adjustment should be for the market. There's nothing really, I mean, you can give us a bunch of data from MLS, like a bunch of sales that say, well, this is the average price in November and this is what it is today. That's good and helpful, but we have to kind of prove that ourselves, because that's what the USPAP requirement is for us as appraisers. We have to come up with our own support and reasoning behind it. But you can give that information. You can, kind of persuade them. You might get it a rebuttal, right? So if the appraised value doesn't come in, the one thing you can do is produce a rebuttal. You can give them up to 3 sales that support a higher value, but they have to be true comparables. Like, can't tell you how many times an agent has wasted. They've shot a blank right out in the air. And I'm like, you missed your one opportunity. Don't do that. Take your time on the rebuttal. If the appraised value isn't there and you truly believe that there's some comps that are in the appraisal that don't really reflect your subject property, take your time in choosing 3 truly comparable properties. A lot of times I get this problem. They'll send me something. I'm on a major road, right? Like Route 133 or something like that, maybe 28. The appraiser, the agent gives me comps at a rebuttal that are on these private cul-de-sac high-end neighborhoods. Right? It's great. It matches age. It matches size, even bedroom count, bathroom count, acreage. Everything's right there. It's awesome, but it's location. You guys know that. You teach us that. Location, location, location. That's really what matters. So you got to make sure that you're giving the comparable properties in your rebuttal. That's all I want to say there. I want
to interrupt the rebuttal, like the one, you only get the one shot.
Yeah.
Because you'll give the information, but the underwriter makes the decision and they're skeptical. But if you have a good story,
Yeah.
you know, they'll believe it. Like if you look at the facts, they're gonna be like, hey, we you know, we agree with you on this. So I've had, you know, several rebuttals work, but at the same token, you come in, you're like, I can't even take these to the underwriter because you're gonna think I'm clowning around. So it either, if you know, if you can prove the evidence, it's there, it'll work. If not, you know, I'll let you finish, but then we've got some options to deal with it when it's not gonna work.
Yeah, I was just actually going to transition right over to you. So the rebuttal process, I'm sure you know, you don't come to me and talk to me directly. You have to go through the proper channels. Ever since the new laws came into place after the bubble burst, you have to go through the proper channels, and that's through the mortgage lender themselves. So if you're the listing agent on a property, or even if you're the sales agent, you're like, no, my buyer really wants this, but the value's even there, you can both work together and produce the rebuttal list to the underwriter. And there's a form that they usually have that you have to fill out. That's when it comes to them, and then through their channels, it filters down to us.
Yeah, so the way the new rules are written is I can't pick up the phone and talk to an appraiser. Right. The only appraiser there are two appraisers I talk to because they've been friends of mine for over 10, 15 years, you know, just as friends. But if XYZ has the file, I have to take this information, give it to my processor and underwriter, and then they send it and they talk to the appraiser directly. So we have a panel, and Scott's on the panel. So randomly, him or his company or Jim, they'll get our stuff, but I can't pick who it's going to be. Like, hey, this is going to be a tough deal. Let me put my best guy on it. No.
So you go out and collect the information at the field and pass it off to the appraiser.
We got passed to an underwriter.
An underwriter, right?
They know how to examine these, you know, appraisals.
So you just collect the data, not just.
So I collect the data. I can examine it, but I'm only like a, you know,
You're not the-
I've got like a high school degree and I don't have or a college degree. I don't have a master's in appraisals. So, you know, so I can tell if I think it's going to be if there's a, you know, if there's a good story to it. You know, like, hey, this, you know, I had an appraisal in Hamilton, Mass. Refinance wasn't working, and I live in Ipswich. And this one comp was killing my thing. I'm like, it doesn't seem right. There's something wrong here. So one day I got in the car. I'm like, 6 miles away. I want to go look at this house myself. When you stand on the porch of this house, you could reach out into the window of the pizza place next door. The camera did not have a picture of the pizza place. So the comp sold for $60,000 less because you got to order a large sausage and cheese pizza from your chair on the porch. So
That sounds like a bonus.
it depends.
It depends on the market, right?
Depends on the market. After a while.
Pizza lover, it's a
To
bonus.
the pizza lover, it's a bonus, but it's, you know, so that was an example of once I, you know, I literally took a picture from standing across the street and texted it to my underwriter, like, here's what this place really looks like. And it was, you know, they called up and said, all right, you can get another appraiser out there. So should I talk about it?
Yeah.
So if the appraisal doesn't come in, or if you think it might not come in, there's a couple different ways. Like if you have a hot market and everyone's offering, and you're looking at the comps and you're thinking, this is gonna go for $1.2 million and the highest comp's $1.1 million. I've had people put an offer with an appraisal tolerance, meaning we'll close the deal. If we're paying $1.2 million and it's only gonna appraise for $1.1 million or $1.15 million, we'll still close the deal if the appraisal doesn't come in there in that way. And then we school client as to how to do that. So a couple ways we do it. On jumbo loans, we can do 15% down with no mortgage insurance. So if someone, you know, typically they want to go 20, we've got a couple of investors that go to 15%. There's no mortgage insurance, there's no difference. It's just, you know, so there's an automatic 5% tolerance built into that. The other way is that mortgage insurance for years came in two flavors, like chocolate and vanilla. Put 5% down, it was 78 basis points a year. If you put 10% down, it was 52. Now it's a la carte, basically. Everyone's credit score and the loan factors factor into it. So mortgage insurance can be as cheap as 15 or 20 basis points. And for people who want to overpay for a house, say, okay, you're gonna have to pay mortgage insurance, it's gonna be $60 a month. Like, oh, wow, we can do that. You take that, when you turn the big bad word into a number, then it's more palatable. Like, oh, okay, I can live with that. You know, people say, oh, I don't want to pay mortgage insurance. Well, let me just show the numbers. Will you pay this much money per month to live in this house? Oh, absolutely. Well, then let's do it. It's just a payment. It's just what they call it. We also have what's called single premium mortgage insurance. Or, you know, we kind of call it the single bullet. So you pay one premium up front. And the same thing based on the credit score could be low. So it's like, hey, you're going to pay $800,000 for this house. Appraisal came in low. You still want it because you've looked at 27 houses, you've made 19 offers, and now you got one that someone wants to accept, and the appraisal's not working, but you feel you do it. Would you pay an extra $7,000 or $8,000 for this house? Absolutely. Okay, well, that's the cost of the single premium.
Yep, I did
So you
that.
do it right up front. You don't have it anymore.
I did that.
So,
Turned out in retrospect not to be a good idea. Only because my crazy.
Because-
house.
yeah. and
So
then-
I could have refinanced, I could have had it moved.
Yes.
That was a decision process. I, at the time, as a salesperson, wanted the lowest possible, mortgage payment. And so I paid up all my fees up front.
Yeah, and I at the time, I remember selling a lot of those to people because it was a good deal, but then the market, you know, like you said, the market went up, values went way down, rates went way down. Never want to refinance, but it's a, calculated risk. So, and I always tell people too that, I know it's investment, but first a house is a home. So if you're gonna flip this place, you're not gonna overpay for it. If you're gonna want to live here and raise your kids and do all that stuff, then this is where you want to be. We'll help you make it happen.
That's a good point. I mean, that's truly a good point because you're making memories at home. Real quick, I want to bring in Jimmy, and another thing that we see a lot in the field is GLA differential, right? Like, what do you guys claim as GLA versus what we claim as GLA and what we are required to claim as GLA? So I just want to have him.
Yeah, I would say the biggest issue that I have just writing reports is what's marketed as something and what it actually is. And so like on a raised ranch, it'll be stated on MLS, it's like 2,000 square feet, but it's not 2,000 square feet according to what we say. It's 1,000 square feet above grade. And so that always leaves us in an awkward position because we do the research, we go on MLS, we go to the assessor and we see the GLA. And so we know what the true GLA is, but I had a deal this past week that it was marketed as a 2,000 square foot house. And if you looked at it as a 2,000 square foot house, it would come into value, but it was actually a 1,000 square foot house.
So do you go by the building codes? Or?
I go by anything that's below grade. So even if it's a walkout basement, we have to count as basement area.
So, and it's still valued at that. It's just a different level of
It's
value.
just a different level. So like when we write a report, we have to bracket the GLA, and so we have to find other sales that bracket that GLA. So it puts us in a position where we're kind of hamstrung to have to get that stuff done. So that's the
Do
biggest
you
thing.
have that, like, do you have a percentage that you say, what, we'll give it 50% value or 70%?
Usually for us, it's the utility of it. So how many rooms are down there, what are the rooms being used for? So we'll give, if it's a bathroom, it's a bedroom, it has a certain value. If it's just like a storage room, like we don't really give it much value.
My value in a dollar amount for that.
The
But
dollar
do you
amount's
make
value.
$1,000
Yeah.
for that.
Do you make a distinction if it's entirely below grade or if 3/4 of it? I know you have to walk.
So technically, we're taught that if any corner of it is below grade,
Quarter
it's
of
an
an
inch, a quarter
Quarter
of
of an inch,
Yeah.
a whole level is below grade.
Below grade. And the only time that we can get around that is if we see like a kitchen in the basement. And then it kind of becomes like a unique property. Like if the kitchen is below grade, then we can count that as part of the living area, but that's about it. It's more of a contemporary kind of style.
Unless it's a berm style house, like in Medford, your hometown, right? I dealt with a berm style home where literally it's built into the side of the home where of the 3 levels, all 3 were below grade to some extent. And the kitchen was in the first lowest level. So if a kitchen is in the lowest level, then that level actually can't be considered basement. The kitchen has to be present on the main living area in order for it to be a house. So there are some unique situations where you'll see that.
So if the kitchen area is in the corner of the basement, is it like the 1/4 inch rule? The kitchen's okay,
The
the whole
whole
basement?
level
The whole
is
level.
considered above grade.
Yeah.
It would be tagged as contemporary. And then we would have that wonderful experience of trying to find comparable properties with the same thing. And I'm telling you, we spent hours. I mean, Jimmy and I would spend hours looking for unique. If you really want to help your appraisal process, if you have a unique property, which every one of you will at some point get to, do that research to support your, it's just going to help you in the long run all through. Have the comps in hand so that when buyers come in, if it's your listing, you can say, this is where we get this value from. When the appraiser comes in, you can hand your little packet and say, this is a tough one. These are the sales that I use to validate this listing price.
Right, so two things. One, we're not necessarily validating value, we're setting market pricing. That's what we do, different than you. We're not appraisers, so we don't set value, we set market pricing, a little bit different. Two, back to your comment about the kitchen. If this kitchen, as described, was in the lower level, but there was a main level with a main kitchen, are all bets off in that situation?
Correct.
Or that certain situation is
all
only applicable if it's the only kitchen?
Now we've got a different problem.
That's an Italian.
It's an Italian kitchen, or now it's like, it's not a summer kitchen anymore. They really want us to verify, is that permitted? Of course it's not. Like, they just wanted to get out of the heat and not cook in the middle of the heat.
That's how I was brought up.
But everybody just did it because, you know, it was smart, but a lot of them were permitted. So the underwriters and the mortgage industry started getting non-sellable loans on the secondary market. So of course that trickles down to us verifying it, and then they come after us and our E&O, and then they, you know, it's a whole big game that we're all a part of. And we just want to have people be happy.
One of the unique property traps I see too, is log homes. Every town has 1 or 2 people that buy this kit, they think it's great, and it's unique, here it is. So then you try and find another log home that is sold within a year or 6 months.
Good luck
With
with
the,
that.
with it, yeah, good luck with that, so.
Oh, I love those. I love going out 150 miles to find those. One more thing, Jimmy, connect with them a little bit on the EDUs.
Yeah, so I think that in the past, it's been looked at as, if you remove, like a lot of times you see unpermitted in-law apartments in the basement. They're kind of viewed as finished basement, that kitchen in the basement kind of thing. And if you just take out the stove, then like we're in a good situation and we can like move forward. I've just been seeing a lot of, with the lenders that we deal with, that that's not the issue anymore. They look at ADUs, not necessarily with the kitchen, they're looking more at like permits, kind of it's actually permitted. And so I was at a house the other day, they knew that it wasn't permitted and they took out the kitchen stove in the basement, and we're gonna have to see if that's permitted and go through with that. But ADUs, anything above grade, we just, I think in the past, we've kind of separated that from the GLA, but now we're just including it all in the GLA. And if it is in the basement, it gets counted just as finished basement space.
A lot of people are finished too, they're like the room, the bonus room above the garage. They move into the house and they don't finish it, then they finish it later. So then when it's unfinished, they're not, you know, paying the building permits and all that. So then they'll come to find out that, oh yeah, they did this 2 years afterwards and it's not a permit. So it's kind of good to check.
When you're running your appraisals, are you actually going downtown and getting these permits and talking to the
No,
building
usually you
department?
can
How do
call-
determine if it's permitted?
You can call the building department. Most
You
building
are
departments-
calling and validating permit,
Only if it's
Only if it's
requested.
requested, yeah.
and it's usually requested by your underwriter or by your
Underwriter.
investor.
Underwriter. Underwriter gets to the appraisal process, gets to them, they review everything, and then they'll put in the call for a revision request. And that'll be one of the revisions that we get is, you know, is the basement kitchen or is the accessory dwelling unit permitted?
So, follow-up question, because we always talk about permits, you know, is there some work around the house that we as realtors should be making sure our clients pull permits on, or this could raise a flag in an appraisal? Obviously, accessory dwelling ADUs are a big deal, but other work, are you being asked to check?
Never,
permits on other work?
I mean, I can't even think in the last 10 years of stuff that they've come back saying, can you show me the permits for that?
Okay.
It's only on accessory dwelling units where the permit issue comes up.
So what happens if you don't? They never do.
So that's not a done deal. So all we have to prove is that it's market accepted. And this is where you really can come in to help, right? We have to show other sales that are also sold with an accessory dwelling unit that is not permitted. And there's plethora of them, but they're just a little bit more difficult to really find. You know what I mean? They're really difficult to find because first you have to go and collect 20 sales that have accessory dwelling units, and then you have to go and research each one to see if it's permitted, right? So it's just a little bit more legwork, but it can be done. And if they're sold and closed sales within 12 months, bada boom, bada bing, we're good. We only need 2. So before we close off and open up for Q&A to you guys, I want to explain the appraisal process and what makes a good comp. Okay, this is huge for you because if you hand a bunch of sales over to an appraiser, I want you to look intelligent. Okay, I want you to make sure you're actually handing them stuff that makes sense for us. We have to bracket on our sales grid. We have to bracket the subject property on all areas. So acreage is one. We want to have one that's lower, one that's higher in acreage on the comps. Bedroom count, bathroom count, GLA, condition, view, location, all of these things that are listed in line on the sales grid needs to be bracketed by at least 2 of the comps, 2 of the 3 comps, right? If they're not, if it's a very unique situation, then we extend into the comps 4, 5, and 6. And then on very few occasions, we're into 7, 8, 9, right? For comps. But you got to think about it. For us, we get probably, I think we do get the smallest portion of fee paid percentage on any real estate transaction. And we're a lot of times we're really extending hours and hours of work for the minor return. So
It's like when we do rentals.
yeah. Yes, exactly. Right, you can extend hours and days and months. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. So we have to bracket all of that information on the subject property. So if you're handing sales to the appraiser, that's what we have to do. Same thing on the rebuttals. When you hand us the underwriter rebuttal sales, they just have to make sure that they're bracketing the subject. Does that make
Does
sense?
everyone understand what bracketing means? It means one above, one below.
Yeah, you're bookending, whatever it is. And if there's any unique thing about that property, I need to support it with 2 sales, right? So let's say a unique thing would be that Burma style house that I was telling you about, right? Built into the side of the hill. I need to find 2 sales that are built into the side of the hill.
And I know you're on a roll, but can you also mention that unique doesn't always mean more money,
No,
right?
No.
People always think, oh, I got this unique home. It doesn't always mean more money.
it doesn't always mean more money. No, the market is obviously the one that determines that. But yeah, it's not always that case. All right, so for the 3 of us, I just wanted to open that up for Q&A. Any questions that you would have regarding the appraisal process or the mortgage process? Yes.
The first question is a real barn burner. It always gets asked. How do you determine if a pool adds more value or no value? Oh, the pool doesn't add value. Okay, so talking about those unique things like the generator, the pool, something different about the house. Homeowner thinks it adds value, real estate agent might think it does, it doesn't think it adds value. How do you approach a value on a unique item?
Well, the pool's coming back in style, back about 10 years ago, people were filling them in.
Right.
But now with the COVID,
Yeah, we want to do something.
I've got landscapers that have put pools in that they're booked out 18 months.
And they're spending $100,000 plus putting pools in. So how do we, what is your take? Discuss how pools affects it.
Yeah, so again, I'm gonna say it's gonna be, that's gonna be like a basement where you're gonna spend more money than you're gonna get out of it. It's just one of those situations. You are not gonna get a dollar for dollar return on a pool as much as you're not gonna get a dollar for dollar return on finishing your basement. If you spend $100,000 in the basement, sorry, it's great. You've totally increased the value of your property a little bit, and you've increased the quality of your life because you can either throw your kids down there or you can run down there, whatever. But you're not getting a dollar for dollar return. It's not like the same thing, the biggest things are kitchen, bathroom, layout, expansion. Those are really how it comes down to value in the market. There is a thing with pools that I've noticed where like, you probably have picked on this too, but like, we go further away from the city into more rural areas, suburb rural areas, like Worcester County area, I'm seeing pools valued more.
Right.
It's like they're away from more public pools maybe and the ocean, but I'm really seeing people like really desiring that in those locations because it's hot maybe or something. I'm trying to understand it a little bit more, but it's a little bit
There might be nothing to do around there.
nothing to do around there, you know.
Would you ever deduct value from a subject property if all the comps had nice pools?
Yeah, I have to.
So in that case, it would hurt you not to have a pool because all the comps have pools.
Yeah, if
That's
I'm
how this
in,
works.
yeah, so like perfect scenario, you know, a lot of times happens in Andover. We're in a suburb, you know, a little cul-de-sac neighborhood. It's a fine neighborhood. It's got the nice boundaries, it's got its own little name. 2 of my comps are from that neighborhood and a 4th listing is from that neighborhood. I can't have all 3 comps in the neighborhood. The underwriter most likely will say, that's great, you've supported that, but I want to know more support in the town. Give me 1 comp that's closed outside of that little neighborhood to support the overall, because you don't want all your value in one little basket. You've got to be able to support it in general in the town. That's a big thing that I'm seeing as well.
Is that for single family homes mainly, or what about condos?
Same thing with condos. Condos are definite. Yeah, they want me to go outside of the project to get a different comp 3. But if all of those, to your point, if all of those have these really nice pools, but my subject doesn't, yeah, I might even produce, you know, I have to produce 2 sales that don't have a pool like that. And most likely it will hurt that property if it doesn't have a pool.
How about the other way around? If no one has a pool, but you do?
Yeah, then usually it's the vice versa. Usually it's going to increase the value. You usually are not going to see a decrease in value if you have a pool. Unless you're my neighbor. My neighbor in Reading is awesome. God bless him, right? He made this awesome detached, huge garage with storage above and put in this beautiful pool. And, you know, when he's all said and done, he's like $250,000 into it. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money for those 2 structures. I don't know if you're going to get all that back. And I knew he wasn't going to get it all back, but I wasn't going to break his heart, you know. But you know,
Yeah, but there's other value.
You know,
He wants.
I offer that to so many people.
Yeah.
Like, there's no joke. If you love somebody before they do a home improvement, just have them call me.
Yeah.
Like I do flips right now. I'm doing construction projects and I know the building process, but I can tell them literally in a matter of a 5-minute conversation, you spend this much money, this is where you ought to spend it, and here's how you're going to maximize your return on value. I would, you know, one person that I cared deeply about spent $150,000 on his basement and was sticker shocked when he got the refinance appraisal done after he poured money into it to realize that it didn't really help him. He just wasted all his money. I was like, dude, why didn't you call me?
Yeah, but it depends why he did it. I mean, he wanted it. I mean, I spend money on things that I'm not going to recuperate, but I just recoup, but I just wanted it.
Yeah, he didn't just want it. He was trying to make a financial decision.
I got 2 questions that have always bugged me. First, define value for me and contrast that with, you know, you say, well, I can't evaluate this, but, you know, for the last 6 months, all these properties have been selling way over what we would consider the value. So doesn't that mean the value is higher? And the second question is, what's a good source? So when I'm doing my market analysis, how do I determine what's a bedroom worth? What's a garage worth? You know, these changes that you make to modify your market analysis, where do you get that information?
Yeah, so the answer to the first question is value is defined by the market. We don't define it.
Again,
Right. So just like what we're seeing right now, you have a plethora of people coming in, spending $150,000 over the watermark of a neighborhood. They are defining that value. We're literally seeing value defined right now. They're
so then how
willing to pay
can
for it.
appraisals come in below what everybody's asking.
Well, because some comps haven't, what happens is once a comp closes, it's fact, but we've had this butted heads over the years all the time, because I always you end up with the most expensive house. So when you talk about bracket, it's like, well, I started out with economics, I'm like, market forces are driving this. And in every town, Andover especially, there's one house out there that's more expensive, and it's gonna go under agreement, and the comps are all gonna be less, because the market's increasing. So you run into that, and I've argued with underwriters, and, it depends on, if you get a reasonable underwriter, and they get information from the appraiser, and the appraiser is helpful, but you run into that, there's always that one deal you can't bracket it, because they're on the cutting edge, they're leading the charge.
Yeah, so that's really the hard part, and that's where we need those cash, the people with the bigger pockets to be able to come up with the difference in cash, because all we need is that one closed sale to be able to support. It's an appraisal, as much as it seems like it's current, it's historical. We're looking at historical evidence, so we're not actually getting the actual pulse of the market, and it can change in a month. I mean, when
I've had appraisals come in low, and it'll be like, hey, this one was a listing is now pending, and I've had the appraiser was called up and said, hey, can you tell me when this is closing? Now, they don't give you the price, but hey, this was on for X, and it sounded like there was a bidding war. If we wait till it closes, we can re-examine the value. So on today's information, this house is worth $1 million, but when I have that other comp to plug in the bracket, now we're looking at, now we can cover the $1.1 million.
But now you have to wait for that to close, okay?
Yeah.
before the appraisal's done. Here's another thing too, just FYI, okay, a little trick for you guys. We're set by our effective date. The effective date for us is the date that we go to that property to do the appraisal. So if you know that the next door neighbor is closing tomorrow, don't have the appraiser out there until the day after, till tomorrow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, that can really help you on a situation. Just look and see call the other agent, say, hey, I've got the same sort of deal. I'm gonna be bringing in an appraiser. When is that gonna close? Because you need that in this type of a market, that can help you. Okay.
Second question.
Second question.
How do
I forgot the
determine
first
what
one.
bedrooms were?
Oh, yeah. So we do a paired sale analysis, right? Where we do a cluster analysis of what the value is on each component. So we have to do this to support our value adjustments. A lot of things we also do is peer appraisers. We talk to a bunch of other appraisers to determine what their input is on market value for a specific item within a property. That's how we support our value adjustments on properties. Right now, it's typical for, I've noticed, we've just recently changed and updated a little bit, but like every town is different, but let's just say an average town like Reading or Wilmington or Tewksbury, you're looking at like a $10,000 to $20,000 adjustment per bedroom. That's like a typical market average on an appraisal report. Now, this is just the isolated bedroom. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. The value is not, it's like saying price per square foot, right? It's sold for this. This is the price per square foot. Why aren't you adjusting your GLA as a price per square foot? Well, the price per square foot factors in all of the property. If it's sold for 500,000 and it gives you this price per square foot, it factors the whole property. And what we're actually doing is dissecting it and trying to give a value for each component. So a bedroom is not actually just worth $20,000. It's part of the whole value of the property, but we're trying to see the market differential within that market range. Does that make sense? So like on a $500,000 house, all my comps are around $500,000. It supports a $20,000 adjustment for a bedroom around that range of 500,000. But if it were $2 million house, well, that adjustment might be more. Does that make sense? The value at a $2 million house for a bedroom adjustment is going to be worth more than on a $500,000 house. So there's no, it's not The moment it can get to the point where it's a science, our job is over.
Right.
Well,
You don't want technology.
no, I mean, in some cases you don't. Zillow can get it right, but I've seen many times where Zillow is way off, it's like there are only so many ways an algorithm can look at a view and determine how valuable that is, It just really can't. So, any other questions?
Bedrooms.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to ask the question. Window,
Yeah,
closet,
it's a good question.
above
Jimmy-
grade, below grade. I get the full window, firemen get in with full apparatus. I
Jimmy
get
and I
that.
might differ on this. Go ahead, Jimmy. You tell me what your thoughts, what makes a bedroom versus not a bedroom?
Because each appraiser, I think, has a different.
I would say 7 by 7 is like the international code requirement, I think. You need a window, and you need a door, like an actual functioning door, and you need a closet. That's what I would say.
I've also read into the underwriters when they say that if you have to go through a bedroom to get into the other bedroom.
Scott does all the Boston stuff. I don't go to Boston,
So
so
if
we
you
have
have to go
different.
from one, I have it on the motion right now, that you go from one bedroom to another.
Right, if you can't get into the bedroom unless you access the first bedroom,
It's not a bedroom.
there are some appraisers
That one.
that will.
Well, yeah, they might not count that, but two things. First, I'm gonna negate what Jimmy said in one point, whereas you don't actually need a closet. I think they're actually changing this, in the Fannie Mae selling guideline. But the other thing is anything, if you go to IKEA and you get an armoire and you put that thing in there, that's a closet.
So even if it's not secured.
Well, I mean, you can secure it, you can.
We're not
trim
gonna
it.
go over there and shake it.
Can I add color to this conversation a little bit? So there's building code, and then there's marketing expectation.
Yeah.
The public's expectation.
Right.
So the public expects a closet in their bedroom, and that's, I think, where appraisals get a little hung up.
Yeah.
The building code says, no, closet is a matter of, it's an accessory, it's a convenience factor. As long as you have the basic size, heat, electric, egress, light, that kind of stuff, you're fine to live in them. They don't care that you have, this is what my, research has told.
Yep.
So what do you think about that, Steve?
Yeah, I agree.
Market-
It's
I agree with
always-
that, is it?
100%. It's gonna be the market and we can support,
But if you put an armoire in the room and call it a closet, does that mean it has to stay with the house?
if it's secured to the
The
wall,
wall, that's.
yeah,
the end.
it's considered fixed. But
Screwed, so.
Yeah.
it's a- oh,
So that, I mean, it is attached, it's kind of like.
But I'm never gonna check and see if it's attached.
no, I don't move the furniture.
Yeah.
I'm only, that's the other thing you should know too, is as appraisers, we literally are only legally responsible for what we see with our eyes.
Yeah.
We are not supposed to go and uncover stuff and open stuff. We're not a home inspector, right? So we just look and then we leave. That's what we're supposed to do.
I have many questions. I don't want to hog the floor, so if anyone has questions, please jump in. But the first question, I want to talk about FHA appraisal.
Yeah.
Right, so now this is a good topic.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? How come appraiser A called that out, but appraiser B may not? Things like that. Is it subjective or is it more like checklist?
Checklist. So I asked actually Jamie and Ashley if they could give you guys online, just Google this, FHA checklist, right? FHA appraiser checklist. You'll find it. It's in there. And it's a really healthy little, one page that you should print out or save so that you always have it. This is what the appraiser is supposed to be checking every single time.
And the rules have changed too. The FHA back 7, 8, 9 years ago, they required like a home inspection to be in the report, and it was torture. So if you said FHA to a realtor, they'd just give you the hand because you just. So now, as far as the underwriting concerns, it seems to be peeling paint anywhere, inside or outside, railings, especially down the basements and things like that, and windows. I mean, I've had a cracked window in the shed.
Yeah.
You gotta fix it. If it's in you take the picture, you see the cracked window?
Yeah.
You gotta fix it.
Especially,
Garage, unattached garage.
Yeah.
Little kid shoots the hockey puck through it, I
Yeah.
gotta fix the window.
yeah, I got a couple of those. Especially on your own photos. And don't hang yourself with your own photos. And they're public information, right? They're out there. And so if your photo shows evidence of damage that is not FHA, well, to be honest, shame on you. I mean, like, come on, you guys have to help yourselves out by making sure that your photos are done well and don't show the damage, or if they do, you know there's damage, get it done before the appraiser comes in.
Because it doesn't have to be perfect. It's like just some peeling paint. Quick scrape, quick prime. We're not
That's
looking
it.
for
We
this
don't,
whole house.
yeah, it doesn't have to be professionally done, you know, grinded down all the way to the bare bones and reprimed and all that. No, it just can't be actually falling off of the property. And this means fences. So just so you know, make an imaginary fence all the way around that property, including that fence, everything inside peeling paint is a factor. So it could be a tiny shed that is like, you know, about to fall down, which we've seen constantly. And the underwriter's like, ah, looks like peeling paint to me. I was like, it probably is gonna be cheaper for them to just throw that away than it is to try and repaint that.
One tip to share with people is if someone does work on the property, like a pressure treated deck or a fence, they don't have to paint it for the FHA. It doesn't have to be painted for the FHA approval. But once it is painted and it starts peeling, then there's the problem. So you actually pass an FHA appraisal, which is pressure treated deck, no painting at all.
Oh, yeah, no.
Right, so people think, oh, it's supposed to be painted, it's open wood is what they think, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't have to.
The other thing too is rip screens. That's a big thing too. So they don't want to have rip
They don't matter on
screens.
the fourth floor.
I don't know.
Andy Consoli had a class here the other day, because no one needs screens up to the third floor. After
Interesting.
that, you don't need them. I
Interesting.
don't think mosquitoes get that high.
Yeah, that's what he said. But if the screen's on the fourth floor and it's ripped. then
Yeah,
you gotta-
if the screen's on the fourth floor, it's ripped, you still got.
Yeah, there you go.
So, cracked windows, and it means even the little attic ones, right? Like I did one in Lawrence, it was a multifamily in Lawrence FHA, and I was like, ah, it's like, it was horrible. There were so many issues with it, and I was like, I can't even point out how many issues were wrong with it, but one of them was this little hexagon window in the attic that didn't open, but it was cracked, and it was actually missing a section of it. That counts, right? So.
Ventilation. Ventilation.
It's-
Under the gable vent.
Yeah,
Continuing, I guess, FHA, continuing with that kind of stuff, as an appraiser's eye looks at it, knob and tube wiring. Any worry from you from an appraisal standpoint, or you don't care about
yeah, I don't, I think we might be required to state that knob and tube is present. I don't even know.
I don't
The
think
problem
it's
is,
stated. I think the
Sure.
issue
It's not even that.
would only be like exposed wires, like if there's a missing faceplate or if there's like a dangling wire or something like that.
Yeah.
That's more.
Yeah, I would say some appraisers might get a little too aggressive in their stance and start, you know,
Right.
probing into it to see how frayed the wire is. I mean, you've got knob and tube is exposed wire, so some of it's
I've had
gonna
them
be.
when they take pictures of it and put it in like the room picture that's got the close up.
The reason I ask is because we've always been taught it's safety, security, soundness issue, FHA concern. So safety, knob and tube could be a fire hazard. Is that gonna come up as my
Well, the other part too, like she mentioned, if you have trouble getting insurance.
Yeah.
You might end up in a, you know, they call it the FAIR plan in Massachusetts. Everyone has the right to insurance. But you might pay $80 for your homeowner's insurance, but if you're in the FAIR plan, it's about $400 a month. So there's nothing fair about it.
Yeah.
You just get it. So on your average FHA client, that's a, you know, that could be a number that skews we can't do this.
The other thing too is cracks in the foundation is a big thing. Talks about structural safety of the property. Another thing that I just experienced out in Ludlow, we were doing a purchase. It was FHA. House looked great. Property looked great. I thought it was no big deal. I was like, oh, this is going to be a breeze for FHA. Then we get into the basement. I almost stepped in it, but like it was unmoving, completely clear, 8 inches of water.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I called the agent because it was on lockbox, and I said, hey, just unless you know everything looks great, except there's 8 inches of water in the basement. She's like, what?
That wasn't disclosed?
Well, it just happened because of all this rain. And I'm looking around, it's like the guy has downspouts, like the extensive amount of downspouts, putting them all over. It was like, is the water table really that high? It was even up on a hill. And so most of it, I was like, it just doesn't make any sense. And then she did the research, said, oh, the gutters were all clogged. So he had the right downspouts, but they weren't even being used. They were just clogged gutters going right down to the foundation. So she had the fire department come in, they pumped it out. She had a, probably service pro or somebody come in to dry it all out, and now it's fine. We got some pictures of it, and we're good to go. But just know, like, water is a big thing. Standing water, dampness, especially up here in New England, we have a lot of fieldstone foundations. That matters. Okay, that's a big deal.
Dampness matters, or dampness, like, I mean, so many fieldstone foundations do.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to. Can't get rid of that. But you know what I would do if you could, right? Have the buyer or the seller get a dehumidifier and just run it for 2 weeks straight, and don't have the hose attachment to it and have it draining if possible, because that bucket will fill up like mine. I can't, the way my plumbing works, it's too high, so I can't get a dehumidifier to come from a drain. But my bucket fills up twice a day.
I'm sorry, Chuck, did you sell pump up dehumidifiers now?
Oh, really?
There was a pump inside the dehumidifier. that pump it up,
Good to know.
just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Get one of those.
Home Depot.
Okay.
Which one else?
Does floodplain, if the property's in the floodplain, how does that affect the value?
Doesn't bother us at all.
Really?
Yep, doesn't bother us at all. Obviously, every waterfront property is going to fall under a floodplain. So we rarely see a waterfront property not be in a floodplain. So that
What if
doesn't
it's not
bother us.
waterfront? What if it's just in the low lying area?
Yeah, it's
You don't care about that?
I really don't. Unless there's some sort of impact that you can see at inspection, it doesn't bother us one bit. Yeah. The underwriter, when we have our appraisal software, we have this nice little button that has a little raindrop, and we click that and it produces the flood map for us. And so that's all we are required to do. And sometimes
We get a flood certificate that says property's in the flood zone or it isn't. And then you find out, does the current owner have flood insurance? The maps changed about 7 or 8 years ago. So that was a big problem, because people that were never in the flood zone trying to sell their house, all of a sudden they need it. Then you have to go, it's hard and time consuming to get. It's not like getting car insurance or homeowners insurance. So it takes a while. So it's kind of.
So you just click on that little raindrop?
Well, I get it for my own processing software, so if I have a property address. So I tell clients that, if you're looking at a property and you're not sure, and you're not sure if the realtor even asked the question and disclosed it, just call me, we'll run it through and find out if it's in there to begin with, and then you can factor in your decision, because now if you get, flood insurance is gonna be $400 a month, that you didn't factor it in, especially if you're not on that oceanfront place, you're like 2 blocks back, you're thinking, I'm not in the
Yeah.
danger zone if you are, that, well.
So this is a question about the conditional adjustments, right? So a lot of times as salespeople and marketing, we want our clients to update their home to show better: paint, carpets, flooring, fixtures, vanities, things like that. And so it might show like a brand new home. But the comps that you might use aren't updated that way. They might be less updated. And flip it around. You might have a home that maybe was updated 10, 15 years ago. It's clean, it's habitable, it's neat, it's cosmetically not desirable today, but the comps you have are. When do you apply the conditional analysis? How do you apply it?
Yeah. It's a great
talk
question.
about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of wiggle room in that. So the other thing too, just so you know, in an appraisal process, right? Appraisal class I went to when I first started appraising and getting my certification, the instructor gave us a packet of information about a subject property, and then gave us a list of I think it was 25 sales. And he said, okay, based on this information, produce a value for the subject property. Best you can. I know it's not perfect. You don't have everything you need right now, but just based on what you have right now, produce value. There was a a difference in the class of 25 appraisers of $80,000. And that was like almost 15 years ago, 18 years ago, right? Appraisers can have a huge difference in what they consider to be market value on condition. It's huge, right? 10% is really ideally the most that we can adjust a property for condition. Once we go over 10%, our appraisal software triggers a red flag, right? Which makes our appraisal suspect. And the underwriter will get it. And there's a written code within the UAD format that says your score on this appraisal is high risk, right? I can complete it, I turn it to them. They can see it. I can't even see it. It's embedded within my software. It tells me it's already scored my appraisal if I'm good, if I'm low, or if I'm too high, right?
And especially with the condition adjustments, first thing they'll do is say, okay, when you get that bad score, they'll be like, okay, so they say this is the nicest of the four, and then they'll be on Zillow for whenever that other property sold, and they'll go through every look at it, and I'll have the underwriter give me one of these. I'll walk it by, and they're like, look at this, and she goes, tell them 2 more comps, which is, you've already picked the best 3 or 4, so going to find 2 more that are basically the same. Take this, and so you kind of have to. I mean, Scott's been good at it. You can't say, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great, because no matter how great he says a property is, the underwriter is going to just value it based on their judgment, and they're not compensated for closed loans.
You get 2 opinions that you have to prove your property to, right? The appraiser's opinion, and then ultimately the underwriter's opinion. So one key thing that I want to encourage you, and this is on refinances too. Like refinances is even harder because nobody cares about their house when it's a refinance. You're not trying to present it for people to come in but it's the same approach. Like we're doing the exact same thing. And I tell people on a refinance, turn on every light, if you would like, clean up the place, get it ready for photos, because I am taking photos, and the underwriter will be looking at my photos from my iPhone compared to professional photography done at listing photos, right? And there's going to always be this huge difference between the quality and what's there. I still have to prove in the refinance appraisal that the condition is actually very similar to this. It might not look the same because I don't edit my photos and it's lived in versus being shown. But the difference on condition would come down to I wish we brought that out. Maybe can you look up as we're talking what a C4 and a C3, the definitions are, because they're really helpful to look at. On our appraisal, we're either going to label it as a C3 or a C4. Very rarely do we see a C2. C1s are always going to be brand new construction. No one's lived in the property. But a C2 is like this albatross, right? If you're into golfing, you rarely see it. It's like super, super high end, super, like nothing is from Home Depot. It's 100% custom. Yeah. Everything is just absolutely through the roof, the nicest of nice, the highest quality of highest qualities. That's a C2.
How would you appraise that?
Say again?
How would you adjust the value?
The value for that?
Yeah,
Well,
client's property.
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's like at that point, that's where I start to weaken the appraisal. And at that point, I don't really care too much about weakening the appraisal. So I'm going to see those high-end C2s on stuff north of 2 million, most likely. I've never seen it below 2 million. So I'm going to go north of 2 million on stuff like that. And then I'm going to try and find comps that support it. There's going to be a rare occasion where I might be in a town where you are the nicest house in that town, and not even that town, but the other 6 that surround your town. You're the nicest house. That's the worst one for us to appraise, because I've got no support for it. So now, not only am I going beyond 3 miles, which is an indicator of strength on an appraisal, but I'm going out beyond 5 miles. And so it starts to really look like a weak appraisal. That's where it's a situation where it's like, okay, I don't care if it's resellable or not, but this is what I have to do, and I really just stated all out there in verbiage. This is why I'm going this far beyond the typical 3 mile range to find this comp, and I explain it all out. This is why I've adjusted it $500,000 for condition adjustment because of these items. And it's like, it becomes twice the size of a report as it normally is because of the language that has to go in there to support that condition adjustment. But real quick, C4 is like not really updated. Might be updated, but maybe updated maybe 20, 30 years ago, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like for mica countertops, you know what I mean? Like nothing really, really nice at all about it. That's a C4 condition. Anything with granite countertops, you know, newer cabinets, stainless steel appliances, that's C3 and more. We can also though adjust, right? Let's say I'm doing a $500,000 house here in Andover and it was updated 10 years ago. So it still has the stainless steel, has the granite, has the cabinets that have been, you know, pretty updated, has the tile flooring, the tile wainscoting in the shower. So bathrooms adjusted as well. It's a C3, but then I got this comp that just got remodeled in the kitchen and the bathrooms 3 years ago, right? Nicer, it's newer, it's nicer. They're both C3 according to the verbiage that calculates a C3 condition rating. But I can adjust that one that's higher down because it's newer, and I just explained it. So I might hit it for a -5% adjustment because the improvements are more recent, they're more extensive, and they're more market accepted at this time. What did you find for the?
No, we were right. You were spot on.
Okay.
It's funny when you look at enough of these appraisals, the history reports.
Yeah.
You can guess, well, not guess, but you can tell by what was in style when something was remodeled. Like, oh, they haven't done that since the 90s. Well, because until recently, that was when the last time someone bought white cabinets. It was like 1990, 1991. And then it went maple, and then so you look at it like, oh yeah, this wasn't done over a year ago, because this is, you know, oak.
When you want us to send you good comps, you said you wanted bracketed comps, so one above and below. So if we're looking at a 4-bedroom, you want us to send you a 2 or a 3 and 5
So
versus the 4-bedroom?
So no, if look at the appraisal, right? You'll usually be able to see the appraisal.
Yeah.
Look at the comps that are in the appraisal, and then if there are some, like the best thing for you, best case scenario is that the appraiser didn't really bracket the property that you're listing or buying with your client. Did bracket it very well with the comps that are in there. So that's where you can be like, okay, why didn't you use this sale? Yes, you know, the subject's 4 bedrooms, but 3 out of your 4 comps are 3 bedrooms, and you only use 1 4-bedroom to support value. Here's a 5-bedroom. Do you see why this one's more superior? You should have used this comp,
Okay.
right? Or here's 2 other 4-bedrooms. So if I had on my appraisal, it's a 3-bedroom and all 4 comps are 3-bedroom comps, it would be not like bedrooms are non-issue at that point, because you could give me 3 comps that have 3 bedrooms and you can give me 3 comps that have 4 bedrooms, but the bedroom is already, you know, taken care of at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's supported. It doesn't need to be one. It doesn't need to be a 2-bedroom and a 4-bedroom, because there's a huge difference between a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom, right? It's just a monster difference. So there's no point in really throwing in a 2-bedroom comp. What I mean is that when you're giving them sales, look for things in the appraisal that aren't bracketed, that maybe the appraiser's missing the value component of.
Got it. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Don't waste that opportunity to give them something that really doesn't support what your value conclusion, what you're hoping for.
Right. And then kind of another quick question for you.
Yeah.
You said you could talk to someone for like 5 minutes and tell them where they should put their money.
Yeah.
What are some of the top assets in a home that you think would bring value?
Kitchen, bathroom, those always happen to be the first. I would say the next thing that adds a lot of value within the market is layout, right? If you can remove a wall and LVL it, right, that will absolutely change the value of the property because it's open. Everyone wants open right now. So removing a couple walls will produce that openness that people want. And then for the next thing, I would say it's more expensive, but it does have a return. Increasing your GLA, your above grade GLA, right? Very simple thing. If you guys are doing anything like in Lawrence or Methuen, and you're doing these older homes that have the walk-up unfinished attic, that is the easiest way for a property to increase value. Like, you should be marketing that left and right. I did a two-family just yesterday, and I don't remember where I was, but I walk up and there's this, I mean, it looked like, I thought I'm walking to the third level, but it's an attic. And I mean, I could stand up in this thing and I'm like, I could fit 3 bedrooms and a full bath. The plumbing stack is right there. I could tie right into the plumbing line. It's like a no-brainer. I could spend minimal money and the return on that is massive. Like, that's what you guys should be marketing big time. That's the easiest way to add value to a property, is finishing that third level. Because if you don't have to do any dormers to it and it's high enough, you can get skylights are super simple to add in, and they're super cheap, but they flood the area with light.
What about the garage?
The garage, we were talking about that too. I did a property in Newton where we couldn't, because of the FAR requirements, I couldn't have it attached to the property, so I had to make it detached. But we had this beautiful area above. And I told our contractor, I said, you know, I don't want to waste this area. This is like vital. Can't we turn it into a COVID office? Let's market it as a COVID office. We threw in some windows, we finished it all up, added a door, threw in one of the mini splits up there so it could heat it and cool it during the summer. It already had like a shed dormer, a lower shed dormer window, but it would suffice. I had 2 gable end windows. And they loved it. They're like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. I can be home, but yet I'm away enough to where I have my own little COVID office. Definitely, you know, definitely doable. Just be cautious. There's not a ton of support for that yet. As far as a huge value conclusion, you'd be better to finish that area as an accessory dwelling unit, where it's like an in-law, a mother-in-law, you know, and go through the proper permitting, but that might require a lot more expense because typically the garage doesn't have plumbing. All right, so yeah.
This is my last question.
Yeah, we got lunch for you guys too.
Right.
Thank you.
So this is a kind of a conceptual question, I guess, to get your feeling on how you approach things. We're often thought of as, the realtor has to come up with a valuation and market it and what it might be worth. But then when you look at the PNS, you've got a target price to find out.
Yep.
Are you appraising for real market value, real appraised value, or are you mainly trying to come in to substantiate the bank's position in this market? And that's why the appraisers always come in at the sale price or slightly above, right? Versus, you know, if you had no number to work off of, would that be more legit for your service?
Yes. So for
It would, but when you go back to the room that he was in, 25 appraisers, $80,000 difference, you lose 60% of your deals just on opinion. These 2 guys can be 5% different, and an underwriter's judgment, neither one of them is wrong.
Right. I guess all I'm saying is your job is substantiating the sale price, not necessarily coming up with value.
You have provided for us a buyer who represents the market, and that market has deemed it the property worth this.
Right.
So that in itself is proof. Now it becomes us actually disproving that this buyer is accurately representing the market. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it would be very difficult most of the time for us to disprove the value of a purchase price. If someone's willing to pay $350 for it, and we don't come into $350, we have to prove that it's not, because they represent the market. Does that make sense? So that's why it always comes right in at that value typically, is because they are the market. And why fluctuate, you know, any which way? It just adds actually more problems. There's times where, like, if I were to come in $100,000 over the pending sale price, do you think the underwriter is going to create issues with that appraisal? Let's say you have it under contract for $400,000 and I bring it in at $500,000 and that appraisal comes in to the underwriter. What do you think the underwriter is going to think? They're going to scrutinize that appraisal, right? They're going to create chaos. Well, why did the agent? And that's literally what they'll come back and ask me. why did the agent list it so low if it's worth so much?
And the
This
biggest
doesn't-
change in the biggest change in the loan application is identity. Do you know anyone in the transaction? So that's the first thing they think of, is that when that comes in, it's an identity of interest. Okay, is this are we bailing out the builders, you know, the realtor taking out a
Yeah.
mortgage?
Just creates.
Buying half of is there something going on here? And the last thing you want is when the underwriter starts to play Sherlock Holmes.
So I guess
Never as well.
you're confirming my thought is that you're there to validate the value. Either just credit the buyer's price or say, yep, it's acceptable. You're not necessarily going on a limb saying, well, it's worth 50 grand more. You're not gonna necessarily. do
But
that.
I would say it's a matter of judgment. Like if there's overwhelming support for 50 grand more, it's kind of hard to walk away from that in a lot of situations.
Real quick, before you guys go, John is a guy you guys would definitely want to use and have in your back pocket, because he's faced so much in his history of doing it, all throughout. I mean, you don't even just cover Massachusetts. I know you.
Well, New England.
Yeah, all of New England. So, you know, if you want to have a mortgage loan officer that can really handle any situation that you guys encounter, that's John. I've known him for so long. I'm telling you, he can handle any situation, the best out of anybody. You don't really want to team up with
Gillis.
somebody. John Gillis, do you, maybe your cell phone or your email, do you want to give him?
Yeah, I'm john.gillis@rate.com.
John
They
with an
stopped
H.
sending us business cards because they said with COVID, they're going away. And now this is the first time I've been back in our real estate, in like 20 months.
See, front of that.
John Gillis at, what was it?
Rate.com.
John with an H. So, yeah, you would want to have him in there.
And I've got my cell phone on all the time. Like I legitimately had this conversation about the appraisal coming in low at 8 o'clock last night. The borrower said this realtor would like to speak. She called me at 8 o'clock and said, what do you see with appraisals coming in? What are we gonna do if this doesn't work? So I gave like it's like she knew what I was talking about today. So I had to give what we talked about today, last night. And the guy, I got an email at 2:30 in the morning that they accepted his offer. So
I think it's important to hear from you guys, what you think the appraisal are coming in at, because people ask me all the time, and frankly, I'm only privy to my own book of business, right? And maybe some of my partners here, right? So my feelings are, I've not had any problems. But you guys have seen more going on. What do you see?
If you guys, you all will have that pesky seller, right, that thinks their house is worth $1 million when it's really only worth $5 million. So I want to give you this option as well. This will help you seal the deal. Say to them, hey, I will get a pre-listing appraisal done for you, right? You call us, we'll give you a deal on doing an appraisal, right? We'll give you the appraisal to hand to the seller and be like, this is what the current market value of your property is. I just asked the appraiser to come out and do the appraisal. And this is an unbiased opinion of what the market value is. And then from there, you have that going forward and how you negotiate and get that listing. It'll help you land a listing and make the process smoother, because when the appraiser comes for the purchase, once you have it under agreement, you can say, we just had an appraisal done to find out the listing price. Would you like to have a copy of it? Most appraisers will say yes, because they want the peer-to-peer impact, right? If Jimmy is appraised a property, of course I want to know what he thought of the property, because he's a peer appraiser and we stick together and we're supposed to lean together with each other. Yeah.
The only problem with that is that appraisal that you give me is gonna be, when I sell it, it'll be 50 to 100 grand higher than the appraisal.
Most likely, most likely.
So if I share it, then I have a problem.
Well, that would be, yeah.
But in a normal market climate, that'd be excellent.
Are you seeing a lot of appraisals being waived?
I think, I mean, that's one question.
They're done via automated underwriting, so depending upon the loan to value, we've had a few
Yeah.
purchases, a lot on refinances. It's not like when he talks about the score that is in his appraisal, all these appraisals are now cataloged by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So now if you do like a refinance and handover, and say, I think it's like a 60 out loan to value, well, they've got a database built up of, 200 houses. So they're like, okay, this works. So the waiver goes away when you get over $1 million in value. It doesn't work on multis. And once you get out into the woods, so to speak, when the comps are farther away, it doesn't really work. But And if the property's been renovated, you're not gonna get a waiver. It's like, it said Zillow, it was like Zillow will have this place as a ranch. He'll come in and turn it into $1 million house. And they go, this should come because there's other $1 million houses. If the computer has this as, a ranch, so it's gonna say, no, go do an appraisal. But it takes, and we also have a tool that we can run that property address and gives us not a guarantee, but a percentage of is this property gonna get away with it. Just takes like 30 seconds. We call it hawk. Just put it in there and they say, okay, you've got a better than even chance of Fannie or Freddie. We're gonna give you a waiver of this property.
Is that something like you can do ahead of time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So that would be a great tool for you guys.
Yeah.
Like to see if you even have a waiver, even for your own refinances, or clients that you want to have refinance, you can see if they can get a waiver. Like if it's just, let's say, you like when you make a client, you're representing a buyer or seller, you don't just represent them once, right? You want to keep them in your database. So what better way to be like, hey, John, do you mind seeing if these people who all just closed within the last 6 months, if they are going to get if it makes sense for them to get a waiver and get a refinance done? Like that would be a tool that would be helpful for your clients and obviously helpful for John as well.
Are the appraisal waivers granted only at like a 20% down level, more or at any?
Yeah, 20% or less. They're rare at right around 20, a little less than that. So there's a lot of them on refinances and purchases where there's a little bit more of a down payment. But once you get,
involve you with an FHA 2.5% down buyer for that.
there's no
There's no waiver on FHA at all.
no way around it.
Roger that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John and his team for providing lunch for us. We look forward to continuing the
Thank you.
conversations. Anytime you guys have questions and you run into a deal, you can give us a call. The appraiserguy.com is the website and you'll be able to reach us through that.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll grab a sandwich.
I will.
Sam?
Yeah.
Right, so you gotta go private citizen. That's your question.
Oh,
yeah.
What if they put like a month ago and they were like, acted like they died. Weird. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Yep, the first person we hired to be an assistant. Ryan, he's from Boston. Now Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Ryan runs
My guys.
He's the officer.
Guys, you did this on the list?
So. She's the one that makes all the appraisals. It's like, hey, oh, it's like, and there's no rhyme or reason sometimes, it's like, big value, so it's okay.
You get one at like $9.90, like the $5,000 house. This one, because house in the area.
Nobody's gonna stay in here and eat? I'm gonna sit here by myself.
Literally.
How are you, Ashley?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
Like, we get the five where in the office.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks a lot.
It's nice to meet you for lunch.
Likewise.
Let me know if you guys ever need anything like this again.
Absolutely, of course, thank you.
How long have you been in the industry?
9 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So
Yeah.
You've seen your share of everything.
Yeah, I came in at a time when people were like, what, you can go into real estate now, right? But I said, I'm gonna learn. Wow, it's crazy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Take
Very
care.
informative.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Happy to help.
Lots of things. Yeah, it's very informative. As you can see, I took a lot of notes.
Good.
Yeah. Always been very curious about how you do adjustments, you know? But like, as you used an example of Main Road, get you a house right around the corner on the cul-de-sac. Just for that.
Clusters, a lot of the cluster calculation, just data points, you know, that kind of extracts that way through. It's really a tedious, long process to do.
And we spend
Especially
a
with
long, long
finances too, it's
time.
like you see people that don't clean the house, like another appraiser. The house is worth 5%. But then you try and, you look at this and like.
Right?
It's one thing if it's the kids' room, but.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And people have such a different perception of clean.
Yeah.
You know, I just sold a house in Lynn a couple months ago that if they had taken my advice, they would have got more for the house. I mean, but whatever, they did what they thought was clean.
It's our house next week. Trash. Gets some sales sign.
Both of it sake.
Like all the end of the, like the end
It
of
was
the
like,
move
there
trash.
were like 3 trash bags piled against the base of the sales sign.
You gotta love that.
And they never, the guy was fixing the house up, stopped about 10 years ago. So he started another bathroom and there was studs, a nail in the wall, a roll of toilet paper on the nail in the wall. And the shower basin where you put like the corner shower, the basin and one piece of the, and you could tell. He stopped like 10 years ago, like, take 10 minutes and make this look. Somewhat.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, you don't know what kind of problems people are having, you know, that they give up, sort of.
Well, John and Jimmy can answer any questions that you guys
Take,
have.
take sandwiches with you.
I can't, man, I just started Whole30.
Oh.
Why?
I'm trying to train for a marathon.
Yeah.
See you guys. Yeah, Jimmy and I are.
Oh, you're doing it?
No, I don't know about that one. but-
Oh, okay.
Question, I'm gonna renovate my bathroom. Does it break down the bathroom, like, I just remove the tub and just do a shower?
No, not necessarily, yeah. No. That's one of those things where it's like the market and like what you're wanting to, you know, like if it's like a family, you might bring that value a little bit, but not super noticeable, you know. It used to be more, but nowadays I don't think people like having a shower.
Is there only one bathroom?
Yeah, I have a half bathroom downstairs in my basement, and I'm planning on maybe adding a shower downstairs to have two.
Okay.
With the full, like a full.
And is it a home that
Although
a young family might buy?
For my daughter, when she was, and a young family might have like a.
Yeah,
It's
it's
in
in
a
a
basket,
basket.
like a residential refrigerator, counters.
From my
cabinets,
perspective, then a bathroom
Two
definitely
bedrooms
is
and
desirable.
Two
Yeah.
bedrooms and a bath.
Yeah,
I never.
yes.
But I had a license. plumber.
I understand.
I would
I
just,
understand.
like, if you gotta do
Well,
something,
that's what I was like, wondering, like, if I sell
No.
it, do I have to rip everything out?
just
I
the
wanna
stove,
add
just,
the
if you
two
take the
showers.
stove
I
out,
don't have stove.
Oh, you don't have a
Anything
stove?
I did not put in, I didn't put any stove.
no.
But I was curious about the.
They don't still sell.
Because like I had a plumber come in and do a submersible tank thing, you know, so. it's
More,
all-
more than likely, no one's gonna,
Richard is saying that
That's
our
always a
house-
problem. I
We
never
have
really
another
sold my
building
house.
that has a big.
No, it's just-
So-
I mean, what would happen is you'd have to go,
Little ones.
might have to go back and get, you know, pay for a permit or whatever, and then,
That's what I was wondering.
but no one's really
My
gonna,
little big nice about it, but,
raise the
so
arm.
We just did it ourselves. My daughter was in the middle of college.
and it goes in phases, like a couple of years ago, they were, every time they saw something done
Are
over,
we getting this one?
they were sending you back for permits, and then it was getting to be a little,
Yeah, well, like,
Ridiculous.
everybody was always, oh my God, you're gonna have to rip that whole thing out. I'm like, what? It's full. Oh, I was curious on that. In Lawrence and Auburn. We have schools, have this, backyard, the bottom part is awesome. It's like that space where the shed is. My mom was in Florida, she's getting older, she has some health issues, so I was thinking that she comes and lives with us. I think about like one of those little tiny homes. Yeah, like a small little, like in-law.
I'd be curious to hear what the town say about
Yeah,
it.
I think a lot of the towns are, I mean, I don't know. I think I heard, just from curiosity, that they're becoming more acceptable, those little. Are they? Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's what I heard. Everybody's like, everybody comes forward.
Because I know I heard in Middleton, they're not, like, I think they don't allow it.
It really depends on
I
the
was just
town.
like, thinking that they're, like I said, they're starting to come around, I think, a little bit on those, but.
You didn't give us your cell phone number, you gave us your email.
617 835 9991.
835.
Yep.
91.
No, 9 3 9s and a 1.
Oh, sorry.
Got it. Did you say 9?
9991.
I did 1.
Do we have everyone, right now, everything has been electronic because send me an email, my contact information is there. Now we have people applying online. So I tell people like if they're thinking about it, if they apply like over the weekend or something, my email pops up and says so-and-so was looking for pre-approval.
Yeah.
And we can, go in the system if they give enough information. to-
Initiated, yeah.
We can do it within, 20 minutes and a half hour.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really helpful that we can get answers from loan officers over the weekend. Like if my people said they wanted to buy a house up to 500. But then find a house that they absolutely love. Now all of a sudden they're willing to go to 550. I gotta get a new pre-approval like this.
Yeah, I have people, you talk to them and they fall off the grid 6 months later, then it's like 6:30 Saturday, they're like, oh my God, we just drive by this place. What are we
Yeah,
gonna do?"
yeah, right. Need a new pre-approval. Yeah, because my people, one of my clients, they backed out after losing out on bids last summer. They said, oh, we just can't do this anymore, right? So they just sidelined for a while. They got back in the game this year. She's like to her husband, you cost me $100,000 because the house is in the community they're looking at. This is the community they want to look. $100,000 more than they were last summer. That hurts.
Yeah.
But I finally got them under contract, thank the Lord God, because I gotta get them off my. Oh, I put so much time into them. Took a long time to get some people past the idea that,
When I do the pre-approval letters, I store them by last name and a number. And I've got some people, it's like Jones 9, means that there's been 8 other pre-approval letters on different offers.
yeah.
Oh, good.
Talk about unique properties. I had one of my very first sales was a property in Methuen that was a church and they turned it into a home. Spectacular.
Where is it?
It's on Gloucester Street in Methuen. Right near the 495 off ramp at the,
Where the library is, like up in that area?
Shepherd Library is. And you know what? I don't know Methuen that well. This was one of my very first sales back in whatever, 10 years ago. But wow, talk about a unique property. How the heck do you hunt that, right?
They did the same thing in Ipswich. They sold the Polish church. Turned it into 2 condos. Had the choir loft and still.
Does it still have the bell tower? Go up into the
Same thing, and
master
this- And the
bedroom?
open house had like 500 people because everyone wanted to go back and see the
Yeah.
church one more time when they got married.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Young guy bought it, who happens to Boston, had 2 little girls. This is so much space. What are these 3 people gonna do in all this space?
Well, I was the one. There's
Can I say it again?
That's fine.
So many new faces. What's your name?
Ellie?
And Laurie.
Hi.
Good, good. So many new faces every time I come in.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Oh, okay.
I've been with them for.
Thank you, guys.
3 weeks.
Thanks a lot. Yeah,
Thank you, sorry.
I'll be in touch.
Great.
Did you just?
Yeah, yeah, I got my license and I came in the week after, because I knew Jen and she brought me in. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't.
I know, it's like you're just diving in and that's it, like it's just, everything just goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a
Yeah.
good one.
Thank you for your insight.
No problem.
Yes, thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
I have 2 years in December.
Nice. Yeah, like the last
Or
couple
in
of weeks, I
October.
felt like I was like, oh, no, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really expect to get a job immediately.
I know.
Like my brain didn't even wrap that I even passed the test. I was like, what if I passed the test?
Yeah.
So when I got the job, I was like, throwing things at me, fishing, and I'm like, now I'm ready to focus, but I was like. so
Yeah.
overwhelmed.
It's a
I'm
lot.
still all over the place.
It's hard to know in the beginning where to focus.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. I'm like, I need somebody to tell me just what to do every day, just tell me to check this off or something. You know? I put together this night and we had a spark and then you have these other things. I want you to do these, and you have your mentor and your coach, like, learn the system. I don't know how to learn, the MLS and all that stuff.
You almost have to be willing
Well, that's what I keep saying. to Jen.
jump right in
Yeah,
and
well,
learn in the process.
well, that's what I think it's better, because you're not understanding it, just watching these
Right.
videos. You're not getting it because you're not doing.
On the job
Yeah.
training is
I-
very effective.
I work at a vocational school and that's how I learn, so.
I'm still learning. And with every transaction, you're still learning.
Oh, I'm
Something new
I'm
comes
sure.
up.
Absolutely.
You thought you had it, like, oh, I got it now, I got it. Then you see me calling, okay, oh.
Help.
What is this? I've never done this one before.
So are you guys in teams or?
I am in a team. Yeah,
Are you-
my sister.
Who's that?
Larissa, team with Rayla.
Oh.
When I first started with her, she was in section 21.
She was what?
Section 21.
Oh, okay.
And then now this year we moved.
Good move.
No, I like that, and I like all the training
Yeah, me too.
they offer. I'm trying to come a little bit more and get in more involved with stuff because I have my girls at home with me. So once they'll be in school full time this year, both, so then I can dedicate more time.
Yeah.
To
That's what I'm doing. I worked at a high school for 35 years.
Which
Oh,
one?
my son is
Ray
graduating.
Lawrence.
Oh.
So I'm ready, oh really, what's his name?
Malik. You know Malik? With the hair, well, they all have the hair now.
Well, I think I did know him.
I'll show you a picture.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, show me a picture, I'm better with pictures than,
What did you do at the vote?
on a special education power.
Okay.
So I go to all the. But 2 more years, my son will be off my insurance, and that's what I'm done. So let's stop this now, learn it, get it going, and then just do this. Plus, I waitress on the weekends, and I'm done both of those. I want to be done both of those jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, got away with so many things.
Exactly. Right? He has that beautiful smile, and he was just a nice kid. Yes, he was.
He's very social.
Yep, he's a sweetheart.
Oh,
So you should be proud. He's a nice kid.
I'm glad to hear that. Because at home, I'm like,
So he's very nice. He's a nice boy.
We get to see their other side. I
you
guess.
see the other side, but
We
it
don't
makes,
see the mom, we don't see the mom side.
I know, but it makes me happy when, you know, every other
Yes.
people always tell me the same thing, like he has such good manners, he's so
does, he's a
polite, he's so
sweetheart.
good, and I'm like,
He is a sweetheart. He's a nice kid.
it's just at home with mom. Nowadays, it was very nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.
Your name is?
I'm Kelly.
Kelly and Laura?
Laurie, yeah.
Laurie. Kelly and Laura.
I know, me too. I know. Like you in the picture.
And I'm vaccinated, but
I'm vaccinated too, but you know what? I started wearing my mask to the market and to the stores.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
I'm in new problem, I have lupus, so I
Oh, do
try
you?
to
Yeah,
just
you gotta be careful.
be extra careful.
Exactly. Hey, I don't judge people if you want to wear your mask, because really it's your health, it's your.
But it's my house, I don't care if anybody else wants to say, but it is my house.
Well, you know what? If you don't want to wear one, that's your business. Don't leave me alone. Let me do my business.
Let me wear mine. It's okay, you don't wanna wear it, but I wanna wear mine.
I have mine too, and you know, I can look everywhere because you
Yeah.
never know. I bring them because some people don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Because you have one on.
Yeah, well, I do it for myself, because if others don't want to, I know how.
Yeah, you're protecting yourself. So, yeah, you have to do that.
All right, ladies. Have
All right, have a
great
good day.
Looking
Same
forward
to
to
next
seeing
time.
you guys more often.
Yes, hopefully.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Are you doing the next class also?
No, what's coming up?
CMA analysis or something?
Oh. No, I gotta go get some other things accomplished.
Just trying to absorb everything right now. Did you say you're not on a team? You're doing it always by yourself?
I tried doing the team
I
thing.
don't know how it works. I don't know which is better. I feel like I'm a leper if I don't belong to a team. I haven't met anybody that's not part of a team.
Oh, really? No, there's plenty of us that
Oh,
are
okay.
solo.
Okay.
Plenty of us are
No,
solo.
no, I don't like to work on this own.
Yeah, and this, of course,
I mean, I need help with people, but.
there's pros and cons about either. I did try to do a team a few years back. I don't really want to have to answer to anybody at this stage of my life.
That's how I'm feeling. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 55. I've done my duty. I'm done.
Yeah, I want to be my own boss.
I have no children left anymore. They're all gone. It's my time to do the hell I want. I don't listen to anybody. That's how I feel.
And, because we all have such different ideas about how to grow a business,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if you're gonna be on a team, there's gonna be a leader, there's gonna be a team lead.
Right.
And that team lead may have very different ideas about what you should be doing at any given time.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, like, I just turned 60. My family is still primary to me, and so if things are happening with my family, I want to be able to focus here.
Right.
And then come back and focus here, and that's what I do, and that's what I've always done.
Yep, me too. Like right now, my sister happens to be moving in my house right now today. So, yeah, call them at 4:00 in the morning. Can I come move in with you? I was like, sure, okay. So now I'm like, my son texted me, he's like, she's moved every single thing she's ever told me in here. And I live in a little ranch.
Oh,
I
gosh.
can't even imagine I'm gonna go home to.
Oh, my goodness.
So I mean, I always have crap going on in my life.
Yeah, and I
I
have
have
my niece
grandkids.
staying with me right now, and so that's taking my attention,
Yeah, like I know the rest of the day, I'm not gonna be able to do anything. I'm gonna have to reorganize my house, clean out closets, do that crap. I'm not gonna be doing anything today. You know, it's after this meeting.
Now, do you feel the need to set like a time frame for her to?
Well, she works at the IRS, so that's another thing that we have. She has to be she works from home now, so she has to be hardwired in.
Yeah.
So I think she's gonna be taking over my office that
Oh,
I set
boy.
up for myself. Now I'm thinking, how am I gonna rearrange? Yeah, my
Oh,
brain's
wow.
my brain's been racking. But then my daughter and my son-in-law are both nurses, and so I babysit a couple nights a week. for them,
Okay.
you know, for the off. Yeah, in between hours. Well, I'm always, you know, like, things are going on, so it's.
Yeah, you have to be able to be adaptable, right? So I've had a hard time establishing any consistent daily, schedule
Yeah,
because of it.
I just literally made myself a whiteboard. I went to the store yesterday, bought a whiteboard and did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And put times on it, so I can see, I need to visually see when I'm doing something and when I have a block of time. to do
Yes.
something.
Yep.
So I can focus on, whatever requirements I need, like I said, to the ethics thing.
Yep.
And I got something from Matt's for the state that I'm gonna work. They're both like a couple hours, so. A couple hours to put aside to do that, and I haven't had time to do that yet.
So let me see, I see command overview at 1:00. I don't see
Yeah.
CMA in here.
Oh, is it command? I thought it said. something.
There's an MLS training. And then there's a command training. Really, there's so much to know there.
I did see it last night.
CMA.
I don't know what day it is. Oh, maybe it is tomorrow. There. DNA's tomorrow at 1:00. Oh, what's your status? What's your status is today?
I don't know if that's in office or,
Oh, yeah, tomorrow doing the lead generation side. Right, they have lead generation tomorrow.
is that tomorrow or next Wednesday?
I have to do the work.
Okay.
I could be wrong, because, my brain is a nightmare. Also. What's your
I hope others come and eat up those sandwiches.
Sure they will.
I'm sure they'll get eaten. Probably when the ALC meeting breaks out, they'll come and get some. All right, I'm gonna go call a client and give them an update. Thanks. See you? Yeah, I'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'll probably come in for that lead generation class, whatever day it is.
Yeah. That's what I got. My little whiteboard, so I took a picture of my whiteboard, too, so I could go look at it.
Smart.
I'm like, I don't know what they think. Yeah, so nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Get some good food, yeah. Got it, man. Yeah. And they got the rolls too. not gonna be shy.
Hey, on time, here you are. How are you going? Hi. Yeah, I can share that. I'll be in my office in 1 second. Right away. Boom.